What's going on all you gamers? Today we're going to be going over a little bit more Rainbow Six Extraction, and what we're going to be covering today is the tier list of what I believe are the best operators in the game. So if you want to know which operators to pick, which ones are a little bit stronger than the others, then stay tuned, that's coming up next. Welcome back all you guys and girls, as always for all things gaming, for all things Xbox, then why not hit that subscribe and bell icon. I'll bring you all the latest and greatest content, hints, tips, guides and builds, and just some fun gameplay and reviews of upcoming games, such as Dying Light 2 and of course Elden Ring, which are just around the corner. But for today I'm here to tell you which operators I believe are truly powerful in Rainbow Six Extraction and the ones that you can probably get the most out of the game with. Now remember, as always, this is just based on personal opinion, so if you have a complete difference of opinion and you have a reason why, then why not chuck it in the comments. But for now, let's jump straight over to our first operator. So the first character we're going to be covering is going to be none other than Doc. Definitely one of the best starting operatives you can pick. He has some really nice weapon options and starts off with a close range shotgun, so could have that as a lad option and use a silenced pistol for stealthy kills if you require. Shotguns are really good in this game, so he has a nice array of weapons. Now this guy I believe is actually quite underrated. I myself didn't think much of him, but now after playing him some more hours, I realise that he's absolutely awesome to have in a team. He can heal himself and his team, he can revive himself, and at rank 10 he really starts to shine, as he can boost the health of his teammates by 30 each time he uses one of his abilities. He can do this 5 times and you're best off thinking him as a walking talking health kit and a half. In fact, leave him to pick up the ability packs within the mission, and most times you should be golden because he'll be able to replenish your health whenever you're in trouble. Doc is amazing early game, but can be used all the way through the game, as he's just a viable option on his own or in a team. So for that reason, we're going to be chucking him straight over here into that A slot. Up next, and we have Ela. Ela is one of my personal favourite characters. Very easy to use, she's fast, she gets some great weapons, and I'd say she's one of the very best operators in the game. Later down the line, as you level her up, she'll unlock the LMG-E. LMGs are just ridiculously good in this game, and once she has this equipped, gone are the days where you'll have to worry about reloading. It holds a massive 150 in its capacity, so picking up one ammo during a mission is usually enough to last you till the end. Also again, once she reaches rank 10, she'll be able to hold 4 of her abilities, which are Gridlock mines. And even better than that, they also recharge. Therefore, every 1 minute you're going to be getting an extra one back. Her ability is absolutely top tier, and at 8 meters of sticky proximity mines allows you and your team to clear pretty much whatever is in the vicinity without it being able to get to you. The only thing I'd say is be careful for those enemies that can shoot, such as the spikers. It also means if you wanted to, you could be quite adventurous with what you bring into the actual session in regards to your tech explosives, as you already have a means to deal with the enemies. For this reason, her overall ease of use and just how good she is within the game, I'm going to be chucking Ela straight over into that S rank. Coming up next, and we have Pulse. Pulse is a bit of an odd one. He was the first character I used, and looking over his advancements and weapons, I thought he was going to be an absolutely top tier operator. However, after using him for a while, I really think that he's a little bit underwhelming. Now he's by no means terrible and does come with a nice shotgun, but it's not really one of the best ones, so I'd probably recommend his assault rifle instead when you unlock it. The main reason you'll probably be using him is for his pulse. His pulse ability is called Cardiac Sensor, where he can detect certain enemy types and nests throughout the mission. The problem with him is, for a long time, it's a little bit lackluster, and only really shines at rank 7 and 10, when you can put it away and it still manages to detect nests and enemies. Unfortunately, even then it doesn't detect everything, so sometimes can lead to a false sense of security. Do yourself a favour, grab yourself an XR recon drone and a slightly better operator instead, and you'll thank me later. So unfortunately for him, I'm going to be chucking him straight over into that B tier for now. Dropping in next, and we have Alibi. Alibi is just a great all-around operator, amazing solo or in a team. I myself didn't particularly like her starter weapon, but that's about it. After unlocking a few things and a few advancements, she really starts to shine. You can get a great shotgun with her, one of the best ones in the game, that does some really nice damage. Also she can get an LMG, which again is just amazing to use. She also, I believe, comes with one of the best abilities in the game so far, and that's Prisma. From start to finish, this one is top notch. You can throw decoys out that distract enemies, and any enemies within range also get scanned. If the decoys don't take too much damage, you can pick them back up again. Once you hit tier 10 with her, she unlocks a nifty feature where you can put the decoy on top of one of your drones. I would highly recommend again the XR Recon drone, and this is just a fun time. If you want to lure out enemies, you want to lure them away from yourself, you want to lure them towards yourself, do whatever you want in order to take them down. Even some of the biggest baddies in the game, such as the Smashers and the Tormentors, can easily be led astray with this. For me, she's one of the best operatives in the game, very versatile and just amazing in any team. And for this reason, again, she's going to be jumping straight into that S tier. So up next, and we have Finka. This one was a little bit tougher to rank, as I was a little bit too minded about her, but after using her a little bit more, I really started to like her playstyle, and she can pretty much be amazing in any team play. Solo, probably not the best to be perfectly honest, but in a team, absolutely exceptional. She gets a pretty decent loadout, and I really like her LMG again. Her final weapon as well is a pretty nice SMG, but the main reason you'll be using her over any of the operatives will be for her support abilities, Adrenal Surge, which comes with a variety of benefits such as boosting you and your allies' health, can give them some health regen, and last but definitely not least, can be used as a team revive. If you're with people that are falling over a lot, or you're on some of those tougher missions, Finka can definitely be one of the best players that you can have in any of your teams. So for Finka, I'm going to be chunking her into that A tier. Now the next operator we're looking at is one of my favourite Go Loud operators, and that is Hibana. Hibana has some really nice speed and some nice starting armour. Her ability is called X Kairos, and you may as well think of it as an explosive type of cluster grenade that can be detonated remotely. This does some great damage at base, and even better once it's rank 10, when it jumps up to 480 and regens one charge every 45 seconds. All in all, I find her pretty outstanding. She's just really easy to use. Playing a little bit less stealthy, but want to take out multiple enemies at once, she's definitely one of the best in the game. Her only downside, I'd say, is probably her weapon selection is not anywhere near top tier. Her first assault rifle I actually really like, but with only 20 in the mag, it can be a bit of a pain sometimes. So it may well be that you want to try her MP5 SD instead. Definitely not the best arsenal on any operator, but overall, after playing her for quite some time, I found her to be one of the best operators for those uh-oh moments when you needed to clear all of the enemies coming towards you. I am almost 100% sure everyone will disagree with this one, as probably she's going to be ranked lower on a lot of people's lists, but I'm going to chuck her into that A slot. If you're not me, most people will probably chuck her into the B, but I find her great to use, and like I said, for just clearing enemies and just having a nice easy ability that can clear multiple at once without much setup, I find that she's really good to use. So for that, like I said, I'm going to be chucking her into that A tier. Jumping in next, and we have Lion. Lion has a very handy ability in its drone, which detects all moving enemies in the area. It can be used after a short cooldown, and at max level, he has just a 40-second cooldown on it. Detected enemies also become scanned. Another great thing with Lion is that the weapons he starts off with, in my opinion, is one of the best ones in the game, in the V308 Vector. It's just an absolute beast, with 50 bullets capacity and amazing handling and damage with or without a silencer. His only downfall really is that he can't detect stationary targets, and again, like I said earlier, it all depends on how your team's set up. If someone already has an XP recon drone, this can make him a little bit less viable and a little bit underwhelming in a team because everything will already be scanned. If however your team's set up without it, he's an absolutely integral piece to the puzzle, and a great operator to have for solo or team play. For this reason, he's going to be jumping straight over to that A slot. Now we've had a lot of good operators, the next one up is going to be Sledge, so how's he going to hold up compared to the others? So Sledge's main ability, Tactical Hammer, is pretty much an all-in-one tool. You're going to use it to break any breakable walls and get through the terrain faster. Once he hits max level, the character will also have Armor 5, which gives him 40% damage reduction, so he's one of the tankier characters in the game. He's also able to stun even the largest enemies in the game, such as Tormentors and Smashers, with his ability. He also gets a really nice assault rifle in the AR-33 and an unsilenced shotgun. This character is probably one of the hardest ones to place in this tier list because he's very unique, but I would say probably has the hardest playstyle to actually master without going down. I'm no doubt going to upset quite a few people because he's going to be going all the way down the bottom here into the C tier. The reason for this is because even though his hammer can be amazing and pretty much all of his kit is based around it, most times in this game you just don't want to be that close to the enemy. A few single swings, even from the weakest enemy in this game, can knock you down. And Sledge, like I said, takes a lot of practice, a lot of skill, and definitely has to have a little bit of luck on his side in order to survive every encounter, especially with no damage whatsoever. If you're amazing with him and been playing for some time, let me know in the comments, as you may well chuck him up higher, but for myself, unfortunately he's stuck down there in C tier. Now over to our next operator, and we've got Vigil. This character to me is definitely something special, very possibly the best, or at least one of the best solo operators, but also one of the best team operators in the game. His skill Disruptor means that he can, for 15 seconds, become completely undetectable from enemies. And once it's leveled up, it can be activated every 15 seconds, which is the lowest cooldown of any ability in the game, as well as it being one of the strongest, I would say. Also, at max rank he's able to cloak all of his teammates, change their speed to 4 and make them undetectable as well for that time limit. So if you want an operative that can pretty much take down any single target easily, whether it be a smasher, tormentor or anything else in the game that's not a boss, then this is the guy for you. And also with a well organised team, he can make getting in and getting out a whole bunch easier. For me, he's probably the operator that stands above any other at the moment and is a little bit on the OP side. For that reason, he's definitely getting chucked all the way up the top into that S rank. Up next, then we have IQ. Very similar in style to Pulse, she'll be scanning the environment as she goes. She can detect react equipment, and later levels she can detect most of the Archaeons in the game. And even more impressively, even if they're cloaked, which can be a great benefit. At rank 5 she gets extra mags, which means you don't have to worry about ammo too much at all really, which is great because she also gets really nice weapons, ranging from her starting AUG and shotgun to one of the better pistols I've found in the game, which is the P12. Overall a great operator for all encounters. So for this reason again she's very high tier and be chucked into that A slot. For our next operator we have Jager. Now I really like playing as Jager, he's good going forward but even better for holding down positions. His ability is an automated turret that fires 3 rounds at the start, and it can also interrupt projectiles. Now I must admit I've not managed to make it do that because I've not been trying it on any of the spikers or such, but that's still a great thing to have at your disposal. In general he's just a great way to have a little bit of support for those capture battles or to take the heat off you a little bit. At max rank his ability count goes up to 8, which again can really help to take those hostiles out if you're being overwhelmed. He also starts off with a nice shotgun and can get a commando assault rifle later on, which is a great gun to use overall. A good character to use and very versatile, so he's going to be chucked again right up there into the A with a lot of the others at the moment. So up next, and we have Rook. Rook is a little bit on the slow side, but definitely not lacking in armour. This operator is all about keeping your team alive. His ability provides an armour pack in order to mitigate a bit of team damage. Now don't get me wrong, the enemy still hits you ridiculously hard, but every little helps. Also the fact that anyone wearing armour falls to downed rather than KO is just a great benefit to have with this character. It can really mean operators stay alive when otherwise they definitely would have gone into KO, and you'd have to try to extract them. This character I believe becomes especially good as you get to the later harder difficulties. Also as he progresses he does unlock a very nice gun in the Vector, which like I've said before is just an awesome weapon to use. Combo this guy up with someone like Finka in a team and you have a force to be reckoned with, as she'll be able to activate her ability and pick up the operatives that are on the floor. For all those reasons, 3 in a row, he's being chucked straight into that A spot as well. Now up next, and we have Fuze, another of the slightly slower sided operators. Fuze's ability is Cluster Charge. This is an absolute beast when it comes off, as you'll be putting remotely detonated mines on walls that release cluster grenades on the other side. These can be absolutely devastating when they come off. But because you can only do this on the breakable walls, it could take a little bit to set up and is definitely quite situational. Again, he does start off with a nice LMG, which is just an absolute benefit from the start, but I found myself having to be far too cautious using his skill, and for a lad operator that will be attracting lots of attention when you use your skills, you do in general want to make sure that you're always able to take down those enemies. And unfortunately, because he's required quite a bit of setup, most times other easier to use operators such as Hibana seem to be the way forward. Now I really like Fuze, but unfortunately at the moment he's going to have to go into that B tier. Now the next operator that we're going to be looking at is going to be Smoke. Smoke's skill is remote gas grenades that deal damage over time. When you first play as Smoke, I felt that he was very underwhelming, and his grenades didn't really do much, to be perfectly honest. However, if you stick with him, they are much better as you make your way in those levels. And at later advancements, they deal 85 damage a second over 10 seconds, and the enemies also become scanned, which is a great added benefit in case it doesn't take them down or they make their way out of the gas. Now his starting weapon is the L85A2, it's also nice and easy to use, so he's not too bad overall. Unfortunately, I feel that there may well be a few better options out there, especially if you're playing with random teams, because if things are aggroed, they make their way out of the gas quite easily. However, with a well organised team, you'll probably be able to get this one above what I'm going to rank him, because I myself are going to rank him at B. If you're with an amazing team, and no doubt in my mind, or if you're really good with him, you're probably going to be able to make him A tier. But for the moment, he's going to jump over to B. Now the next person we're going to be going over is Tachanka. Now Tachanka pretty much has the most gung-ho ability in the game, where he deploys a mounted LMG, and it can absolutely wreak some crazy havoc on the enemy. I would say there is nothing in the game that mows down enemies quite like that ability. It's also a ridiculous amount of fun to use in slightly more open areas. However, in almost all situations, it's just not viable in this game. If there were a lot of open spaces, if you could back yourself into a corner, this operator would pretty much be top tier. But the breakable environments, the fact that the enemies come from pretty much every direction, and with just how hard the enemies hit in this game, means standing in one place for a good duration of time is never a good idea. So unfortunately, a lot of times you'll find yourself getting into more trouble than it's worth just because you've placed it on the floor and are stuck in place. Very similar in style to Sledge, like I said, being too close to the enemy definitely doesn't work too well in this game, and for that reason he's going to go all the way down into the lowly ranks of the C tier. Moving on to the next character, and we have Capitao. Now Capitao has the only dual functioning ability in the game, where his crossbow can either fire a bolt of venom or a bolt that does smoke gas, and does a small area effect of each. He starts off with 2 of each, and on paper he sounds absolutely amazing. However, after playing with him for some time, personally I found him a little bit underwhelming. He does have quite a good arsenal, but I just couldn't get on with him, and found especially at early game his ability was just not that strong. 2 bolts of each were pretty poor, and I would rather be using a tech grenade in most situations. Because again, I could change it to smoke if I wanted to, very similar to his playstyle, or I could use cluster or even paralysis. It just seemed like I was using his abilities just because they were at my disposal, even if it wasn't the best option at the time. Also, the venom definitely seemed a little bit weak at the start. For a player that's unlocked very late game, I probably wouldn't take him into those really higher difficulty levels. Now obviously as he ranks up, he does end up having 4 of each of his abilities, but ultimately there are much better operators out there that I'd probably be choosing over taking him into a mission. So for that reason, I'm going to have to put him down with Chunky Boy unfortunately, and he's going into that C tier. So we're coming up to the last 2 players, and we're going to kick it off with Gridlock. With quite a unique arsenal, boasting a short shotgun as her secondary and solid weapons as her primary, she has a pretty nice loadout. Also her tier 5 gear up is one of my personal favourites, allowing you to start with 1 extra tech grenade. Where her downfall lies however is her ability, Track Stingers. She lays traps on the ground that can cover a wide area, and at later levels they even explode to do even more damage to the enemies. Unfortunately, it takes an absolute abundance of setting up, and I mean a lot of setup to pull off, and singly the traps just aren't that good. If you were doing an area denial objective, she's very possibly one of the best in the game, but there's just not quite enough, and the game's about pushing forward most times. Also, I'd probably rather be using someone such as Jager that's just not going to take as much time to set up something defensive. Overall, I'd say she's one of the most unique operators, but it's also very hard to use most times. For this reason, again, she's going to be bopping over into that B tier. So lastly, but definitely not least, and we have Nomad. I must admit I've used her the least out of everyone, so if you think I'm completely wrong, chuck it in the comments. But from what I have played with her, and from going over advancements and such, I really like her playstyle. She starts off with a nice AK-47 which does some great damage and has a great capacity at 40. Or of course you can unlock a shotgun and an AUG, so her arsenal is pretty decent. I also think she has one of the best handguns in the Magnum semi-auto. It may not have a silencer, but it does have a built-in scope, and at 54 damage it has some ridiculously good stopping power. Her ability is the air jab launcher. She shoots a repulsion mine, knocking back enemies and also clearing the area of hazards. Early game I would say it's a little bit lackluster, but it can also still mean that you can get those takedowns on them. However, once you get to tier 10, she really becomes exceptional, as not only does she get 6 mines, but her mines now obliterate most of the enemies in the game, such as nests, grunts, spikers, rooters, pretty much everything except for the top dogs in the game, like the Apex Tormentors and Smashers. Also, another great trick that I only found out yesterday from a friend is that her mines stay on the ground until an enemy goes near them and activates them. So what you can do is that you can always lay them somewhere out of the way, replan your ability to fall via an ability pickup, and then later on, after you've used them again, come back to pick them up off the ground. Overall, I feel she's quite an underrated operator, and I would definitely say she's probably not the best early game, around about B tier, but once you get her advancement up to 7 and of course 10, she definitely becomes much more powerful in my books. For that reason, our last character of today is going to be jumping into that A tier. So looking at that list now, and I just didn't realise how many I'd placed in that A rank. However, I do still think it's pretty much bang on. The only difference that you may well be picking Smoke up and chucking him up into A, and Hibana may well drop down into B. But again, it's probably down to a little bit of your playstyle and such. Also, for one operative that I would say probably stands out from the rest, it would have to be Vigil at the moment. He's definitely the most top tier of the operatives, but any of those S rank ones are just absolutely amazing. Going to our worst tier player, and I'd probably say it's gotta be Tachanka. Nope. He's just not viable late game, and he can get you in a lot of trouble just because you want to use his move, which is awesome, but often makes you fall over. As always guys and girls, like I said, if there's any difference of opinion, chuck it in the comments. But for now, take care, I'll see you all next day.